Hi and welcome to another episode of Silicon Minds Human Hearts. For the global AI community, I am Roeland and I'm here with Marco Casalaina, who is Vice President for Core AI at Microsoft and AI Futurist. Welcome, Marco. Thank you so much for being here.
Man, thank you for having me.
You've been a friend of the show, you've been on a couple of times, but for the people who don't know you yet, could you introduce yourself?
Well, as you said, I'm VP Products of Core AI at Microsoft, and a lot of my job is that, I basically get to play with whatever comes next. So that is the cool part of my job, is that anything new that is coming out, things that you haven't seen yet, I get to be the first person to play with those things. And so recently, those things have included stuff like the O1 model, when the first reasoning models came out, some of the new agent capabilities like OpenAI Operator, that we're still working to, as of this recording, put up on Azure. So yeah, I get to play with all the new stuff and figure out how that's going to apply to businesses, to our customers.
And you talk about it all over the world, right?
I do talk about it all over the world, absolutely.
What are some places you have visited recently?
Well, I got a lot of stamps on my passport last year for sure. So last year included India. I went to Germany 4 times. I was in Amsterdam at least once, maybe twice. I can't quite remember.
In Hilversum, actually.
Oh, in Hilversum, that's right. The Hollywood of the Netherlands,
almost,
right? Yes. Hillywood. So I was there. I was in France. I was in Norway. All over the place. I'm leaving for Bucharest, Romania in the morning tomorrow. So I'm going to head over to Romania for the first time in my life. That should be interesting, I think, Romania.
So cool.
Yeah.
So you not only get to experience all the cool stuff, but you can also almost evangelize what is coming out and what's the new things to try. And if you look at the new things, are we still in the hype? Are we past the hype? Are we approaching winter? A lot of questions.
Oh no. I mean, we're approaching summer. To use that analogy, I mean, some stuff is about to happen that I tell you is going to revolutionize even the way that we think about AI and the way that we think about computing. So specifically, I have on my laptop over here a zoo of CUAs, of computer use agents, right? And I mentioned earlier, OpenAI Operator is one of them, and Anthropic Computer Use is another one. And there are others like browser use, browser base. There's a bunch of these things. And I have also had the privilege to use a number of phone-based CUAs. So there are a bunch of phone vendors that are making these agents that run on the phone that can automate the way that you use these applications. And I will say that I was at CES in January, just last month, in Las Vegas, right? This big consumer electronics show. And one of the phone manufacturers was showing me their brand new phone. It was one of these fancy phones, and it has a folding glass screen and all this stuff, crazy stuff. And they handed this to me, and I was with their head of research. And he says that it has their new phone agent loaded on the phone. I was like, really? Oh, can I try it? Yeah. He says, go ahead. So I was standing in the Venetian, the casino called the Venetian, right? So I said to the phone, find me the best restaurant in the Venetian and book it, is what I said, with my voice, right? And so the phone opened up Google Maps. This was an Android phone. It opens up Google Maps and it went through the listings for the restaurants that were in the Venetian, and it found the one that had the highest rating, which was some steakhouse. And OpenTable was already installed on the phone also. And so then it opened OpenTable and it started to try to book this steakhouse, which had no availability that day. So it kind of failed in that regard, but it kind of got me there. These things, this is going to be part of all of our lives like a year from now. This is going to be how we use websites, how we use phone applications. And on the part of the companies that are serving consumers, it's going to require quite the adjustment now, because, for example, like, how did it decide on this restaurant? How did it decide to use Google Maps and not Yelp ratings? How did it decide to use OpenTable and not book directly with the restaurant? If I said instead, book me a hotel for tomorrow night, how does it decide which hotel and how to book that hotel? All of these things.
Yeah, that's becoming very crucial then, because all the marketing aside, if your apps are not suggesting your venue, then you're not getting any customers anymore.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different implications here. So just before I walked over here to talk to you, I was speaking with an automobile manufacturer, a major automobile manufacturer. We were talking about this. And I set one of my computer use agents to their site to build me up a car on their site. And it started to do this, in fact, in front of their eyes. And then it got stuck. So I had run this agent before. It had previously built a car. They made this kind of a popover on top of their site that was like, hey, do you want to, go forward with the car that you were building earlier, or do you want to start a new one? This confused my agent, and my agent got stuck. It could not figure out this popover. And so it could not continue configuring a car. Well, that's a problem, right? So now you have to think about, do your sites or do your apps do things that are confusing these agents? Because if they do, you might actually lose customers now. And the analog is mobile. So, you got to think like, let's say back in like 2008 or 2009, all these consumer companies, they woke up one day and they were like, wait a minute, we're going to need to have mobile sites. Like, after the introduction of the iPhone, when it was just BlackBerry, they were like, oh, whatever, we can do whatever, it's fine. Then the iPhone came out and it had a full-scale browser on it, but in that little handheld form factor. And they were like, oh no, like we better start optimizing our sites for mobile now. Well, here comes the next generation. You're going to have to start to optimize your sites for agents.
And what would that entail? Is that something like accessibility tags we can set on our applications, on our workloads? Is that how we should approach it? Or should we do something else?
Oh, it's going to be a combination of things. So, part of it is, as it stands, these computer use agents right now, they literally use your computer. That is, they will literally go around the site and click onto these things and try to figure out what they can click, whether it's a website or an application. They can also do this with apps. There is a proposal put forth by our friends at Anthropic, which is a pretty good one if you ask me, called LLMs.txt. And if you think about search engine optimization, and there is a direct analog to be made between search engine optimization and agent optimization, and between search engine marketing and agent marketing. But anyway, so you think about robots.txt. This is a text file that sits alongside your site that when the web crawlers come along and are doing the search, robots.txt tells them, yeah, you can search this stuff, don't search this stuff because it's rapidly changing, whatever. So the idea behind LLMs.txt is a similar concept where it's like a rider page that an agent can look at. And this would sort of describe for the agent, here's what I am. I am this hotel chain site or whatever, and this is what you can do with me. And it can also broadcast. So if you don't want to click around my site, because that's silly, here is an API that you can use in an unauthenticated mode, and here's one you can use in an authenticated mode to make a hotel booking on my site, for example, for a certain time. And so that would be a more robust way for the agent to actually work with that site. And so that's one way that we'll probably come to optimize for these agents. And that's good because hotel sites in particular, or anyway, travel sites, right now are kind of the bane of these computer use agents. They all get stuck on the date pickers. Date pickers confuse these agents. They confuse humans too. There is no standard for how these things work.
For sure.
But yeah, all of my agents get stuck on date pickers almost all the time.
Yeah, just like humans, probably.
Totally.
If we look back or look at the some ethical implications of all this, and maybe even security implications, because the agents you're now talking about, you talked about the authenticated mode and the non-authenticated mode. Well, the non-authenticated mode, well, okay, authenticated mode, well, that should be okay. But what about my user account? Should I just sign away all the rights to this agent?
Well, and that's a really interesting question, and there's not necessarily one answer to that. So consider, for example, one of the things that I often build, I do a lot of these demonstrations, and I have built numerous iterations of this scheduler agent that actually does make bookings on my calendar. And I'll do this on stage where I'll build the agent, and then I will actually make a booking in the calendar. And you'll see it pop up, right? Now, let's say that I build one of these scheduler agents that is interactive, that, it's not just like one and done, and it's not even a chatbot. Let's say you email me and you say, hey, are you available to meet on Friday at 3 p.m.? And then my agent wakes up from that. So this is a triggered autonomous agent, not a chatbot agent. And my agent wakes up, it looks at my calendar and it's like, no, I'm not free at 3 p.m., but I am free at 4 p.m. So it emails you back and says, hey, are you free at 4 p.m.? Now, how does it email you back? Does it email you as me, or does it email you as it? Right? Now, in some sense, it definitely needs to be able to log in as me to my calendar. I have to give it that power to be able to do that. So that part is sort of non-controversial. But when it's interacting with you, or with your agent even, then we get into an interesting question. Now, from a security standpoint too, well, if it has access to my calendar and you can figure out some way to jailbreak my agent, as you know, jailbreak is like a large language model hack that people do, then now it may have more dire implications than before, right? Where before, you jailbreak the thing and now the chatbot is answering some question the way it shouldn't, or saying some weird stuff or whatever. Now it's making stuff on my calendar. Now it's spamming my calendar, or now it's ordering me a car.
Yeah, that's even worse. So we are heading to denial of calendar attacks. Is that what we're?
Well, I mean, I hope not, but I'm sure, like anything, it's always going to be an arms race, right? There will always be malicious parties that will try to exploit these technologies, but it's hard to ignore the utility of these things. I mean, even just a scheduler agent would be massively useful for almost all of us, right? Anybody who has a calendar, anybody who's in business or government today would love to have something to manage their calendar more effectively, that they don't have to be so hands-on with it. But more and more of these agents are going to do more and more things for you. Like I said, booking travel. It took me a while to book those tickets to Bucharest that I made recently. Now, I tried to get my computer use agent to book it for me in Microsoft's internal travel system. Did not succeed because it got stuck on the date picker. But I will get there, I tell you. I will get there. And for a lot of us, those kinds of things will be super useful. In fact, a year or maybe 2 years from now, you're not going to remember how you ever lived without that, any more than you can remember how you lived before you had a phone.
Yeah, these are the stories we're going to tell our grandchildren, right? When grandpa had to order plane tickets, he
right?
either had to call or go to a website himself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even like my daughter can't even envision that there was a time when, now any song that you can think of, I could play it right this second, right? I could bust out Spotify, literally any song that has ever existed, almost. And to her, that's just the way that things are, right? But it wasn't really like that until like 2012 or 2013. It's only been like 10 years that the world's been like this. And now you can't imagine the world any other way. These changes happen very quickly.
And it's going also fast.
It is going super quickly.
It is amazing. But to help people get there, you also now have also a LinkedIn course for the Azure AI, its first steps? Or?
This is true. This is true. So I have just gone live with my very first LinkedIn learning course.
Yeah.
It's called Introduction to Azure AI for Developers, I think is what we ended up calling it. And it came out really well, actually. This is my first experience with LinkedIn Learning. I've not done it before. I present all the time, but not exactly in that kind of format that is kind of a curriculum, a learning course. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The LinkedIn production team, they did a fantastic job with it. So you don't hear me flub any of my lines or anything like that. The truth is it wasn't entirely scripted either. I mean, I did a lot of it off the cuff kind of, but it worked out. And so, I go through a whole bunch of different aspects of Azure AI, using Azure AI for your business. And in fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to record my second LinkedIn learning course, which is all focused on Azure speech. So speech to text, text to speech, video translation, stuff like that. Because there's a really deep bunch of functionality in Azure speech. And a lot of these things people don't even realize is there. But as AI becomes more natural, more conversational, more speech-centric, I think this is really going to be brought to the fore.
Yeah, it has been the past few years, it has been large language model here, large language model there, but there are so many cool services that either were new or have progressed since we last touched them in the entire Azure AI suite. It is so cool. Or should I now call it the core AI suite? Is this...
Yeah, I mean, it's all being served from Azure any way you cut it. So yes,
of course.
We call ourselves core AI now. But
and besides these LinkedIn learning courses, what is the technology as maybe beginning developers, AI developers, we definitely should learn?
Okay, so what kinds of technologies should you learn now? I mean, certainly at its core, you need to learn Azure AI Foundry, right? That's ai.azure.com, and that's kind of the developer portal that we have to all the things. And in there, you'll find Azure Speech and all those things, and also Azure OpenAI and the large language models, the whole model catalog with Mistral and Llama and all that stuff. So all that stuff is at ai.azure.com, and that would be like the fundamental place to get started. And you'll notice that in Azure AI Foundry, pretty much anywhere you go, there's always a button there that says View Code. So you can click that button, you're like, okay, you can try stuff out in these various playgrounds. And then when you're ready to integrate it into your application, you click this View Code button, and there's going to be a selector there. You're like, okay, do you want this in C# and Python and Java and Go? So there's all these different ways that you can access it in this kind of sample code that is tailored to what you're doing right this minute. So if you make an agent in the agent playground, for example, and you're kind of testing it out, and you're like, yeah, okay, this looks like it might work for my application, go to the View Code button, and it'll tell you, here's the code to create this agent on the fly, here's the code to run this agent. It's kind of handy.
It's very handy because it's all in the correct version and it actually works. Because if you ask a large language model, it's probably outdated already. So you always are struggling then fixing those bugs. So that's a very good tip.
And of course, another thing is, speaking of which, GitHub Copilot. I mean, I use GitHub Copilot quite extensively. We were recording this in the GitHub building. Just over the weekend for me, the new O3 Mini reasoning model lit up for me in GitHub Copilot, and I believe that should have lit up for a lot of folks now. And man, I tell you, that is handy, because O3 Mini is different than its predecessors, like GPT-4o, in that it does this kind of internal chain of thought, this kind of internal filtering, checking kind of a thing. And it does have a tendency to get it right on the first try much more frequently than I observed with GPT-4o. And I used it heavily. I mean, I write a lot of code, right? I mean, I write all my own demos, and I use all of the new stuff. Lately, I've been on a tear with the computer use agents, but also with the semantic kernel agent framework. And I've been doing a lot of like Vanguard stuff with that in the new process framework that's embedded in there. And this stuff is all brand new. I don't know it. I've never worked with it before. I don't want to be sitting here looking at API docs constantly. So I use GitHub Copilot, and it does a really good job of this stuff. That's nice to have. So as a developer, I mean, if you're not using this already, now would be a good time to get into this, because it becomes indispensable very quickly.
Yeah, and it just helps you learn. It helps you learn new things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing insights, sharing knowledge. Very much looking forward to what you're going to do next and where we will headed next. So definitely we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again soon, somewhere in the world.